Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the NAC Check-in Chat for March. We appreciate you being here this morning. I've got a few things I'd like to remind you of before we get to our feature presentation today. And I will let a few more people in here. All right. I want to welcome everyone today. We really appreciate you joining us on this beautiful morning. I did want to remind you that our next session is going to be April 13th, so about a month from now, and that's going to feature Teresa Boyes, and she's going to present coaching employees through burnout. So we're looking forward to having Teresa as a new contributor. And also, I would like to mention that there are sponsorships available for these sessions. So, if you want to, for a very affordable amount, you can get 5 or 10 minutes on our presentation and have the screen all to yourself. So if there's anybody out there who'd like to take advantage of that, just give me a call or write me an email, and we will make sure that we get you signed up for a sponsorship. As far as some housekeeping things, I'd like to remind you to stay muted during the call just to cut down on any background or travel noise that we might have. And then also, I'd like to remind you to ask any questions, and we really would encourage a lot of byplay here, but ask any questions by using the chat function. And we will see those, questions, and we will be able to answer them as they come in. And what would a check-in chat be without a few announcements? And I think it's important that we always are reminding you that CinemaCon right around the corner, April 25th through the 28th. NAC has a full slate of events planned. Hearing from the CinemaCon folks, they're excited about a great show. And I will get to those NAC events in just a second. But also, again, a reminder that we have our big event, July 26th through 29th at the Hilton Orlando Lake Buena Vista, the NAC Concession and Hospitality Expo. And we are excited about that. Pieces are coming together right now, and we look forward to presenting that. I would also remind you there that we have sponsorships available. We are selling trade show booths actively. So now's the time to get in on that, on the trade show. We have some great sponsorships, and we're putting together a great program. Registrations are also available right now. But just to loop back and remind everybody about our program at CinemaCon, we're going to return to committee and board meetings on Sunday, April 24th, and the board and committee members have that schedule in hand. I do want to remind you about the charity golf event on April 25th. This year, we're going to Snow Mountain at the Paiute Golf Resort. There are also sponsorships. We have some room for some golfers still, so we'd like you to consider that. If you want to play golf while you're at CinemaCon, please sign up. And so we're looking forward to getting back to having a charitable golf event. We weren't able to do that the last few years, so we're looking to get back to that. We have our own booth at the trade show at CinemaCon. It's 230J, the Julius Ballroom. And we also feature a complimentary meeting room. So NAC members, you have a meeting, you have a client meeting, a business review, you can sign up for our complimentary meeting room. It's just adjacent to the trade show floor, very handy. And there will very shortly be a link on the NAC website where you can reserve a spot. And we will have that available Monday through Thursday. And then also on Thursday morning, we'll continue our tradition of the NAC seminar. It's called Buyer Behavior in the New World Order, the Cues that Support Buyer Confidence. And it's going to actually feature our own Larry Etter, who's going to head that one up. And that's a good segue to welcome Larry in, because he's today's special guest. Larry, welcome. I think you're in Amelia Island in Florida right now. Is that correct?
I am. You guys should be envious. I'm sitting actually at the pool area. I'm trying to check into the hotel, but I'm actually on the beach. So lucky me, right?
Well, we appreciate your ingenuity in finding a nice place to conduct this conversation with us this morning, and also maybe rub it in a little bit that you're in Amelia Island and we're not.
Well, I feel guilty.
Well,
Everybody should have it this good, right?
yeah. Well, we're glad to have you here today. We're going to talk today with Larry about NAC Educational Programs, and I think maybe we can start, Larry, by why is education so important to NAC? What's the background? Maybe just give us a little feel for. We always hear that NAC, a huge part of it is the educational programs. So maybe you could just kind of go through why that is and how that's developed over the years.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think that every association adopts a particular concept or construct on what they're going to defend. So NATO, for example, the National Association of Theater Owners, is a lobbying organization, and they do some educational pieces behind that. NAC has had its pillars built on education and certification, and really validating the credentials of the people that work in our industry. And I think that's important. I don't know of many associations that do that. I know a lot try, but it's very clear that NAC spends a lot of energy, time, supporting its membership with those credentials that support their careers. I think that, the founding piece of the educational seminars really started with the CCM program back in the 80s. And again, to use the term, it validates individuals who have a significant amount of experience and individuals that have worked in the industry, so that, they present a more professional outlook on what concessions are. Over the past couple of years, I've kind of gotten a little bit leery of using the term concessions, because I think that the people in our field now are experienced professionals in food and beverage. And if I could come up with a different term, back in the 50s and 60s, everybody that worked in this industry, they were considered carnies. They were almost gypsy-like, and we've changed that perception. So, I do think it's a value-added service that NAC offers, not only with their networking that they do within the association, but the credentials that they offer through the CCM program.
Do you think, Larry, do you think that may become more important now as, we've all dealt with labor shortages and getting people back to work? And is it more important now than ever to establish the food and beverage industry as a profession with a clear career path?
I don't know if it's more important. What I do think is that through the transition of what we've gone through over the past 2 years, one of the things that makes companies great is training. And even in the CCM program, I discussed the fact that, the top 5% of the companies that are successful spend somewhere between 3 and 5% of their budget on training and accelerating the experience of their employees. And I'm afraid what has happened at this particular point during the pandemic is people have lost so much money and opportunity for revenues that they've cut their budgets back. And, the first budget that goes is, training and seminars and conferences, because people think that's ancillary kind of requirements to operate a business. And I think that's way too far from the truth. We need more training now than ever. And if everybody's taken 2 years off, it's probably time for everybody to get back in and get their feet on the ground and start working together again about talking about some of the changes and what a professional atmosphere looks like in your business.
Okay. Well, Larry, why don't we dive into NAC Educational Programs? I know you and I had talked and just kind of highlighted some of the things that you maybe want to spend a little bit of time on here today, but I know you've already mentioned the CCM program. Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, so the CCM program is a 4-day process. It's very strenuous. And for the people that have taken the class, I think 2 things come out of it. First of all, they get their certification, but more importantly, I think the networking that happens on a personal level between the attendees creates a fraternity among those folks. And they start to share their own ideas and experiences, their best practices. And that helps a lot because it's rare that you can just pick up the phone and somebody starts telling you, for example, how they do particular service. And so, I mean, I learned a lot at NAC when in Dallas this year when we were talking to the diversified group about payroll. And we're all challenged with those kinds of issues, but those individuals shared the fact on, you know, how they've created a tip process, and that's accelerated their employees' income from say $10 to $12 an hour to almost $19 to $20 an hour. I would have never gotten that if I didn't network with those kinds of professionals. So the CCM program not only teaches, but it allows people to get together in that kind of forum and share what their issues might be and what solutions are taking place in you know, other venues or other, you know, channels of business. So the CCM program, while it is a 5-module program with an extensive exam that everybody complains about, it is professional growth. And I think that that's really, really important for everybody in the industry.
The next opportunity to go through the CCM program will actually happen around our NAC Expo at the Hilton Orlando Lake Buena Vista. The class will run from, and Larry, if I get this wrong, correct me, but it will run from Saturday, July 23rd to Tuesday, July 26th. So
yeah, Chris, I want to add one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
So many people aren't aware, and I would like all the people on the check and chat today to remember this, and if you can, talk to your friends or colleagues about it, and that is that we can customize CCM programs for companies. We typically need somewhere between 10 and 12 to put a program on, but there's no reason for people to have to wait until the NAC convention. If you have, you know, if you had 8, 9, 10 people and you wanted to get your folks certified, please let us know because we can actually customize it specifically for you. I've done it for Santikos. I did it for Clearview Cinemas. I did it for SF Cinemas in Bangkok. We've done it for the group in Istanbul. So there are all kinds of different ways for us to do that. I think that one of the things that, you know, maybe I have failed to do in my past is to understand that every member of NAC can be a salesperson or a representative for the CCM program or any of the educational programs that we offer. So I'm going to throw that out today with the 40 or 50 so people that are here. If you know of somebody or you're thinking about it, we actually have discounts for corporate programs. So for example, if you have 3 or more individuals from one company that wants to take the CCM program, we start to reduce the price per person. So you get that volume discount. If we do a corporate program, we kind of figure out exactly what the cost is and, you know, what the return needs to be. And so we can customize that, which would actually per person drop the price for the CCM class. So there are all kinds of different avenues, but we need everybody at NAC to talk about education. And that's kind of what I'm saying.
And I think too, Larry, between the types of business, the types of members that are NAC members, there's a lot of learning that goes on there too, right? With the class about, you know, if you have somebody who's in stadiums, arenas, you might have a few people in the class from theater concessions. You might have a few people in the class from parks and recreation, as we did last year. Just talk a little bit about how that's beneficial to everyone involved.
Well, I think it's really kind of interesting. And I guess I'm going to go back to the last CCM that we had in Dallas back in October. It was interesting because we had theater people, we had individuals with small arenas, and then we had Texas Parks and Recreation. Now, Texas Parks and Recreation, they're really into, almost for lack of better terms, convenience store kind of business, but they do all kinds of different pieces. For example, they have secondary companies that come in and rent canoes, and they need to know how to manage those people to figure out what the real cost is, what are the best options, how do they put contracts out to bid for those kinds of things. And it was really, really interesting to watch theater people hear the Texas Park people talk, and then have the theater people offer them some sorts of resolution to some of their issues. So yeah, everybody crosses, I call it cross-pollinating. Everybody cross-pollinates what their experiences are, and there's a lot of sharing that goes on. Yep.
Yeah, and you know, we do we issue a certificate, and the if you pass the exam, you get to wear that CCM credential, and so that's a nice way to validate your profession. Larry, there's also some type of college credit as well, correct?
Yes. So what we started about 5 years ago was an association with the University of Memphis and the Kemmons Wilson School of Hospitality. If you were to take the class through the University of Memphis, you would automatically earn 3 hours credit for, I'm going to say, 85% of the colleges around the United States. So you could take that accreditation, apply it to your college, I'll say, hours, and that means you could get, I'll say, you could save a considerable amount of money. Let's just assume that each credit hour these days is about $850. You're looking at saving probably $2,700 by taking this class, okay? And if you wanted to further your college education, you could move that over and get accreditation, and you wouldn't have to take 3 hours in college because you would get that.
So
it would be an elective class, okay? But if you wanted to specialize in business or hospitality or sport management or any of those things, it would kind of dovetail right into what your electives would be.
Okay.
So there's a significant value if you want to go back to school.
Mm-hmm. And I think what that highlights, Larry, is there's just a lot more than meets the eye here. These are well-established programs that you've spent a great amount of time putting together, that people before you spent a great amount of time pioneering, and they're there for our members to take advantage of. And I think they really should take advantage of it if they get the opportunity.
Well, I think one of the highlights that kind of gets lost in the cloud a little bit is that when major universities such as Florida International or Johnson and Wales, or the University of Memphis, 3 colleges, universities accept these principles, then it adds, I'll call teeth. It adds real meat to this. This is not some, oh, I want to go out and talk about, what I do, in my company and get credit for it. Now, this is scholastic in its value. Absolutely.
And yeah, and I would just point out too, so we almost every year do a CCM around Expo. We can do custom programs. But the other thing is, from time to time, we have also offered an online variant too. And I know that that's an option for certain semesters. I think we all kind of feel that the more valuable portion of this, though, is a live class.
Yeah, so the online class has a significant value, and it was almost perfect timing that we had developed that just before the pandemic came out, so that people could still get some learning and education while they were working from home. But I think to every person that takes the class in person, they value that so much more, because you never know in person classes what question will come up and how it will be discussed. Online class, my presentations and classes are all videotaped, and then the students download those videos. And so they're hearing what that class is asking questions on, but it's very difficult for them to ask their own questions. And it gets very diluted because most of the online classes are only 4 or 5 people at most, as opposed to like when we were in Dallas, we had 18 or 20. And so, the more minds that you have working together creates, I think a better result.
Okay. And speaking of questions, I want to remind everybody, if they have any questions, use the chat function. That was you really served that up for me nice there, Larry. Use that chat function if you've got any questions for Larry or myself, and we'll do our best to answer those. Larry, I think probably maybe a good time to move along to the next step, which is the Executive Concession Manager Certification Program.
Yeah, so
and maybe walk us through that.
Yeah, so the individuals, Chris, that had taken the CCM program weren't finished learning, and they were asking NAC, how do I go forward, and how do I get more information? How do I get more credentialing? And so we created the ECM program. Now, the ECM program is a graduate style program where 90% of the work is done by the individual at home. And, you know, in the scholastic world, we call it capstone. So I give you what the parameters are for the class and the instruction. You take several weeks or a month or more and develop your own business profile. So what you do is you take the CCM program and what you learn from that, and then you take it to the next level. So the ECM class in itself is only about a day and a half. There is no exam. What you do in that particular class is you take the information that you've learned, and then you, for all intents and purposes, create a business plan that you propose to your peers. And at that particular point, there is an argument, is the term we use, where you present your plan to the class, and then they try to tear it apart to see if you've actually done your homework, if you've really studied it, if you understand what profit and loss is about. Do you understand what a balance sheet looks like? Are you familiar with marketing programs, staffing, break-even points? All of those things, you know, come to fruition, and then you make that presentation in front of your peers, which I think we've had a lot of success with that. Typically, the ECM class only has 4 to 8 people at a time, and so it's very concentrated, but it's an accelerated business plan.
And you might have touched on this, Larry, but there is a group project. Is that correct? I think you may have touched on that, but I wanted to make sure that got.
Hold on just
across.
a second, Chris.
Sure.
Light issue here. I don't know if you can tell, but sunny Florida, it just started raining.
Oh, well, we got to get you under what? How fortunate
So
you've got an umbrella. Now. Yeah. Well, it's great you had one there.
This is a perfect example for everybody on the call. Okay. An individual or an executive, you have to be flexible and you have to be ready for anything that happens.
Well, it's great that you could stage that for us so we could demonstrate today how flexible you are. We are planning on soliciting an ECM class this year at Expo. It would take place on the Friday, July 29th. It would be an all-day class. And we've had a few people already inquire about that. So very shortly, registrations for these classes will be coming out, and you can find them on the Expo page on NAC online.
Chris, we need to remind everybody, you can only take the ECM class if you have passed the CCM class. That's one of the pieces that a lot of people don't know about. You can't just skip the CCM class and go to the ECM class. Mm-hmm. So the ECM class is more for executive managers, people that are in decision-making kind of jobs and responsibilities, mm-hmm. people that are developing budgets for, you know, other companies or, you know, multi-unit locations, that kind of thing.
Okay. And this is a one-day program. Would you say maybe 6 hours total class time, or is it even more than that?
Well, it really depends on the number of individuals. So what I do, so far, the past 2 years, we've been offering it online. And what I do is I have about 8 hours of instruction. And after those 8 hours, the individuals have a period of time to create their business plan and get ready for their presentation. So I allow each student anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to present. So when you say, is it a day? It really depends on how many people are in the class. So I would say that, you know, typically 6 to 8 hours of just review is really what this is what I expect to see in your presentation, those kind of materials. And then they make their presentation. So if there are 8 people in the class and there are 8 presentations in an hour piece, that's hours. So it really depends on how many people are in the class. But typically it's a day and a half. The last one we did, we had 4 people. Each one made an hour presentation, and it took 3.5 hours, something like that, because they don't always go, you know, the full hour.
And you've traditionally had people from different walks of the concession life as well, just like the CCM program, correct? You've had stadium and arena people, Parks and Recreation people, theater,
Yep.
or does
Yep.
it lean more heavily one toward the other?
No, it's, I'm trying to think. The last class we had George Robb, who works for Delaware North. We had Pat, who worked with Phoenix Theaters. So yeah, we have a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine at the ECM class, some of those differences maybe even intensifies the learning even more because of the higher level of conversations that might go on.
Well, it's kind of exciting because each person uses their own creativity to create their own, I call it fictitious concession business. But yeah, it's really kind of cool to watch because they do some marketing programs. They develop their own graphics. They develop their own menus. So yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Okay.
They use their experience and then kind of add to that.
In the course of those projects and presentations, has anybody just blown you out of the water? Like, has there been some pretty amazing presentations during that time?
I would say the last class that we had did, yes. As a matter of fact, I told Barbara on their certificates, we should put summa cum laude on their certificate because they were of the highest degree. They were really, really well done. I mean, okay. I tell the students, let's assume that you're going to take this material and you want to start a business and you have to make a presentation to investors or a bank. What would it look like? And I think that kind of leads the way.
Okay. All right. So again, if you have any questions, let us know. But Larry, I think we may have covered the ECM program. Should we move along?
Sure.
Brings us to Concessions Management 101. Now, this is something we have not really done for a while, but I think it is a pretty good way to serve up the CCM program. And this is available. We can do this again on a customized basis if people are interested. And this is more of a one-day seminar type program, correct?
Yeah. So what we found was a number of CCM graduates reported back to us that they liked the program, but it was too long for their employees. And the NAC board several years ago asked me to create something of a lead up for the CCM class, something that would prepare people to actually take the CCM. And how could they get supervisors and managers, people that weren't quite as experienced, prepared to at least understand the vernacular and the business principles of the industry so that they could grow. So we created a one-day class, the Concession Management 101. It is a boiled down version of the CCM class, but it gets people prepared to take, the serious certification with CCM. The number one complaint that I hear from people that take any of these seminars is, oh, well, it's 8 hours. I don't have 8 hours. Well, you know what? Think about that. 8 hours for a career that you're already spent 3 years in. How many hours a year do you work? If you put it in proportion, 8 hours is not a lot of time. 4 days is not a lot of time. Yes, it's concentrated. Yes, it's difficult. As you guys know, I teach the CCM class as an accredited commercial recreational class at the University of Memphis, and all the students complain. They say, Mr. Etter, this is really, really hard. And I'm like, yes, it is. But you're getting certified. This is not like taking math 101. This is an important factor, and so we can't make light of it. So yeah, the class is actually 8 hours long. I have had it where it's, when I say 8 hours, that includes an hour lunch break and a couple of other breaks. So there's probably 6 hours of pure instruction. There is a short exam at the end of the day that takes about an hour to take, maybe 30 minutes. If you paid attention and you're taking good notes. So yeah, it's a full day program. Okay. But I think it's a great leeway into or a way to introduce yourself to what concessions are. You know, we talk about management principles, we talk goal setting, we talk about what a budget is. You know, a budget is nothing more than a financial objective. It's a business plan, financial plan is what a budget is. We talk a little bit about cost and how important they are. We talk about the menus and how they're always changing, and the menu has to fit the entertainment venue. You know, what would a baseball park be without hot dogs? I mean, what would a movie theater be without popcorn? You know, those kinds of things. And then we do a lot with promotions, things that people can build their business internally. So I spend about an hour, hour and a half on just developing marketing and promotional programs.
Okay. You've taught this class pretty much all over the world, haven't you?
Yeah. And again, you know, it's kind of interesting that you brought that up. Every culture has a different perspective on what concessions means in their world. So if I'm Istanbul, I have to know that people like myself. You would never see that in the U.S. I have to understand that when I go to Puerto Rico or South America, the concession prices and what people are willing to pay is significantly less. So, you know, the cost margins are completely different. Securing supplies is completely different. So all of these programs are literally contoured to fit the environment in which those employees are working. But we also are allowed to sort of integrate and compare and contrast what others do. So for example, if I was talking to, I'll say Clearview Cinemas, they had one of these programs for their employees. They literally had 185 employees certified over 4 days. They broke them down into compartments of 55 to 85 employees per day. But we were able to talk about what other theater circuits are doing. Now, I don't talk about numbers. I don't say, you know, for example, Malco Theater's food cost is 15%. I don't do any of that. But what I say is, this is what you can expect from a different theater circuit, or I've seen other theater circuits try this and it worked really well. So I'm able to kind of, again, compare and contrast what, you know, some theater circuits do and why it's successful, and you know, vice versa. If I can tell you that the international group really wants to know what we do in the U.S. They want to know best practices here, and they want to follow because they've seen how successful the concession industry, the recreational food service industry is in the U.S.
If we were going to do a corporate session on 101, we'd probably like that course, our class, to be a little bit bigger, correct?
Well, yeah, the difference is in pricing. So the concession management 101 was really built for, again, line employees and supervisors, assistant managers and managers. So that cost, well, at the time it started was $99 per person, as opposed to the CCM class, it was, you know, just under $700 per person. Mm-hmm. Again, we can contour that so that, for example, in Clearview, it wasn't $99 per person. It was just a set price to do 4 days for, you know, 185 employees. Mm-hmm. So again, what I would tell everybody in this audience, if you're selling this, let's not talk about price. Let's talk about what your needs are, and let's see if we can fulfill those needs, and then we'll figure out what it costs. That makes sense? Yeah. I think I think that's the whole thing about this trade association as a whole. Everybody asks me, well, why I'm paying these dues? What do I get out of it? Well, you don't get out anything if you don't utilize the tools that you have. So if you're going to belong to NAC, get engaged, you know, offer your help and your support, offer your communication skills, and share and make the industry better and more professional.
Okay. So anything else to add on concessions management 101?
No, I think if anybody's on the call and they're reading the screen, they get a pretty good idea of what we offer.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move along to accredited concession supplier, the ACS certification. And this is more for the supplier community. This is for the supplier community to let them really understand the marketplace that they're working in. Larry, maybe you could expand on that.
Yeah, the accredited concession supplier certification came about because there were a few companies, and I'll give a little shout out to Vistar, for example. Vistar wanted their salespeople to understand the concession industry better so that when they call on us buyers in the industry, they kind of would know what to expect, what our priorities are, what we're trying to accentuate in our businesses. And so the accredited concession supplier certification is very similar to concession management 101. It's again about a 6 to 8 hour class time, but it goes over the fundamentals. And I think that by and large, nearly every supplier that's taken the class has kind of enjoyed seeing the perspective of the concessionaire, of the person that's working in our industry. And it's a new learning experience for them. We do not teach sales techniques. What we teach are the fundamentals of the recreational food service business.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have the menus that we have? We're a very high volume business in very short periods of time. So we need masses of product. We have a lot of special events. Can you handle special events for us? We talk about different case histories and so forth and so on. So yeah, it's helpful for people to, get some information about the people they're serving.
Yeah. And this is exciting too, because we haven't had one of these in a few years. And we do have one scheduled for Tuesday, July 26th at Expo. And, we have a number of folks who are there for the trade show. And this is a great way to get the week started for them, isn't it, Larry? The trade show exhibitors that come in, they can sign up for this course and get a lot more out of that trip coming down to Orlando.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that, all of us now are going to be charged with the responsibility to show why we're attending conferences. And I think this is a great opportunity because it's a significant training opportunity as opposed to a 1 hour seminar. And again, if you get that accreditation, I'll say this, you touched on this earlier. My friend Chris Bigelow, who is a consultant on the diversified side with stadiums and arenas, has told me that when he helps people recruit new managers into these arenas, the first thing that the client looks for is that CCM certification. They want those people move to the top of the hire list immediately because they have the accreditation. So and I know this as far as the University of Memphis is concerned, the students now, every student is looking to get accreditation or certification in some particular aspect so they can put that on their resume, and it again moves them to the top of the list for potential employers. So yeah, anytime you can offer certification, it's a good thing.
In this course, Larry, do you see that same type of cross-pollination that you talked about earlier? Obviously, different people sell into different classifications of trade, and do you see that also in this class where they learn a lot from each other along the way?
Yeah, I think so. It's very interesting that most of the time the audience, the students that are participating, ask really good questions that other people wouldn't think about asking. And so by being in the audience, you go, oh, that's an interesting perspective. I never thought about that. How do you handle this? Why do people want, this particular kind of presentation? Those kinds of things. So yes, it does take place.
Okay. Is there a test or a project for the class in the ACS course?
Yeah, our good friend, it's kind of funny how this starts. The class actually opens with, are you as smart as a grader? And it comes from one of our past members, Michelle Lewis. She actually was reading a book, actually my book, about concessions, and her kids wanted to know what it was about. So she created a test for them, and she passed it on to me, and I thought, isn't that a great introduction? So we'll just ask some basic fundamental questions that are true, false, or, multiple choice to an audience of executives and see how well they do. And so that's kind of the precursor for the class. At the end of the class, there's probably 25 questions just to make sure that you paid attention. And, again, you can answer the basic fundamental questions of, what is a good food cost? Should it be 50% in concessions? Is it 40% like restaurants? What are cost of goods? What should that look like?
Mhm.
You know,
The supplier community is very important members to NAC, and I think it's great that we have something for them as well. I think we've seen, over the years that when we've had these courses, we've had very nice participation.
Yep.
Okay.
I think the ECS
Well, let's
has been well
let's-
received.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's move along, if you're okay, and talk about the regional seminar series. We last did one in 2021, and we had to be creative, didn't we, Larry?
To say the least. Yep. We basically created something about the changing generations and the workforce. And before we even had it produced, it was actually produced. We had to cancel because of the pandemic. And so I actually had some assistants from the University of Memphis, and we had a video expert, a video engineer, create some seminars or podcasts based on that information about the various generations and what do they expect from the workforce. And I found it enlightening. The core values proved to be absolutely true once we got into the pandemic. And we can talk all about these ancillary things that employees want, but when it got right down to it, in every category, the first area that people need is compensation. And as much as people say, well, people don't care about money anymore, they want to be sure they have video games in the break room, or they get free meals, or all these ancillary benefits. That it was false. They want flexible schedules. They want compensation. They want to be paid, and it couldn't be any more true than what we're actually seeing right now in the workforce. I mean, we've gone from minimum wages of $7.50 to now we're talking $15, $12, $15 in every state. So and that's for a reason. People have stood up and they said we want to be paid.
We actually took those video presentations and turned them into podcasts. And that was interesting that they had over 300 listens on those podcasts. They're still on naconline.org, and they'll be there probably forever. So if you missed out on that, visit our website and find the Laboring with a Multi-Generational Workforce, and you can listen in on those podcasts. It's a 4-part series. We kind of broke up the regional seminar day into 4 easier listening. I think they're about 45 minutes a piece. But that was right. 2021.
I think the first one's a little longer, but 45 minutes. Yep. And we want to thank our sponsors.
That was 2020
because they actually produced, the revenue that got all of that, put on the video. So again, shout out to the sponsors for the regional seminar series.
Yeah, and what we do there from a sponsorship perspective is we basically for the sponsorship, each one of those sponsors gets 20 scholarships that they can hand out to people to attend. But that was 2021. Describe for us how this was designed originally to work. It was designed to be live meetings held at regional spots around the country.
Yeah, so the regional sponsorship was really set up, the seminar series was set up to take it to the grassroots and to take it to 10 or 12 different cities in the US where people didn't have to fly to a location to get a seminar. They could have it, within a 25, 50 mile radius where they could drive in for the day and get, pertinent information that would help them grow their careers. Chris, I'd like to do a teaser here and tell everybody that the one that we're working on right now is a special event certification. I think in our industry, we're seeing more and more special events. We've talked kind of a little bit in the industry about birthday parties and those kinds of things, but now we're seeing more and more groups come into the buildings or one-day events. So I have basically designed a 3-part kind of certification. One is an intro to special events that allows everybody the elements, the basics of how to put on a special event. We will have a second program that is for the next level up on how to, drive special events, and then we'll end up with a third one that will be an executive class where you could run your own special events company, or you could do weddings and those kinds of things. And there are a lot of people out there that are already doing that, but I don't know of many certification programs that are out there for special events. So I think it's something that we can offer. Each one of these classes is about 4 hours. And I'm kind of suggesting to NAC and the board that we do these, year after year, so that if you get, the introductory certification, you can then move on to the second certification and then the third certification. So it's almost like the Concession Management 101, the CCM program, and then the ECM program. It would start out, there's so many people that we hire as hourly employees that don't have a clue as to what a special event is really supposed to be, what the experience is supposed to be like for the guest. They just know they show up and they're given an assignment. You stand here at the buffet table, and if it runs out of food, blah, 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 be sure you replace the plates, or here's how you put a tablecloth on a table. All of those things are important, but I think it's valuable for us as leaders, as executives, managers, to have people that kind of know what the parameters are and why they're doing special events. What are we trying to accomplish here? And so that's kind of the perception that I'm thinking about, the next regional seminar series that'll start in September.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot more discussion that'll be had here, especially over the next month and a half, with an education committee meeting at CinemaCon and a board of directors meeting at CinemaCon to
and
finalize
Chris, I want to say this too.
That is something that Larry's working on.
I just want to add this to everybody that's on the Zoom call right now. Just because we did the seminar series called Building Experience doesn't mean that it went away. It's still available. So NAC has a portfolio of special events, special seminars, and certification classes. If people are interested, we can certainly, provide whatever they need if they'll just tell us, hey, I want to work on my hourly employees because I have a whole new list of recruits, and I'd like them to be more familiar with what the recreational food service business is like. It's more than concessions these days. It's not just hot dogs and popcorn anymore. We pivoted, we moved around a little bit. We have different delivery devices. So many people now are going to cashless services where cash doesn't even change hands. So there are a lot of things that have evolved that still need attention and discussion.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, Larry, that all of these things that we discussed today, we've got a portfolio of programming, and it can certainly be customized for a corporate event, or also customized for individual businesses as well. So that's something I think that maybe it's not real common knowledge, but something we talk about all the time.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Larry, I think that covers our agenda for today. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
The only thing that I would add, Chris, if I could, is that NAC is not a membership of 1 or 10. It's not just about the president of the association or the staff at NAC. We have, I think over 700 members at one point, and everyone that's a member has intellectual capital they can offer NAC. They can be they can make suggestions. For example, if we have salespeople or manufacturer suppliers right now that are on the call, and you see a particular company that's looking for training, why not suggest NAC? I'm throwing that out there that, we're a group of at least 400, if not 800 people that could work together. And, that makes a huge difference when you have numbers that are selling the NAC, offerings.
And it's probably a great way to end, because it takes us back to the beginning, which was, what is NAC and why is education such an important part? But I think, Larry, if people have a thought or an idea, they can reach out to Larry. You can reach out to myself, and we can have those discussions if you're interested in a corporate program or a regional program on any of these options. Please just let us know. Well, Larry, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you had to do a little bit of, it's not like you're in a bad place right now, but you did have to do some, last minute planning there to make it work. And
yeah, it just goes to show you, one of our themes in the CCM program is, proper planning doesn't guarantee success, but failure to plan will create failure for sure. And all the planning did. I'm sitting out here, outside the hotel, and it's sunshine, right? And what does it do? All of us have to be flexible.
Well, we appreciate it, and great planning to sit by an umbrella too. So
you guys have a great day. Thank you.
All right. Well, just a few reminders before we go. Again, you've seen these before. You're going to see them again, but we're going to have another one of these sessions on April 13th. It's called Coaching Employees Through Burnout, and Teresa Boyson's going to make her debut as a contributor here in the check-in chat. Teresa's with Great Western Products, and we're excited to have her on board. CinemaCon registration, I've talked a lot about that already. Hope to see everybody at CinemaCon. Stop by our booth, stop by the seminar. We'll be around the trade show, and we'll be at events, and it's just a great opportunity for us all to network and talk. And then just one last reminder about July 26th through 29th, some of our training and education programs are going to happen at the Concession and Hospitality Expo at the Hilton Orlando Lake Buena Vista. Sponsorships, registration, trade show booth are now all available for that. We encourage as many people as possible to get involved and help us put on a great expo and get back to that momentum that we had built before the pandemic. All right, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for being on board today. You've been watching the NAC Check-In Chat. It's a production of the National Association of Concessionaires, where food meets fun. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.